So in my experience, I think that one of the things that I could say to all parents is really, if your child was somebody who was having pre-existing struggles with school, to stay like easing up on them, but try to offer them more resources if you can. If you're financially able to get them a tutor or get a peer tutor at school, or just get them more help, that's the best thing, because not only does it provide them with some peer interaction, but it'll also benefit them educationally. And in your case, like with your daughter who always did very well in school, who might be suffering a little bit now, I think the best thing is just to keep encouraging them and motivating them and making them realize that their grades will go back up and this is temporary. That's a lot of the struggles that have been going on with the kids that I'm working with. A lot of them are worried about their grades and what their parents say or think about their grades. But at the end of the day, we just need to support the youth and try to uplift them as much as possible.
ALFA Relations, driving change forward.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of ALFA Relations. My name's Luca, and I'm here with Alan.
Hey.
And Alex.
Hi.
And today we have ourselves a special guest, a return guest, who's here to talk about COVID, vaccines, and how mental health has been affecting the population. Everyone, welcome Jay!
Woo!
Thanks for having me back, everybody.
Welcome back, Jay.
Welcome.
Okay, we got to be honest with the listeners out there. This, they say third time's a charm. It's the fourth time for intros sometimes. No, that's okay. That's okay.
Nailed it on that last one, though.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. That was a solid 10 on 10 landing, but the first three would have been crash and burn. Oh, That's okay. Luca, you ever think about becoming a test pilot?
I wouldn't board that flight.
Never crossed my mind before.
Luca looks back. Hold on, everyone. Oh, gosh. But that's right. That's right. We have a very interesting episode today. I think it's really relevant, and there's a lot of perspective about it going about. And that's why we decided to have Jay on today, as Jay is our American cousin here. And we're going to be just doing a little bit comparing and contrast just to gain a bit more insight about how, for instance, our vaccine rollout has been going here, for instance, in the province of Quebec, maybe Canada, as opposed to what's going on in California, for instance, and the rest of the United States. And everything, will trickle down eventually into just what's been going on. What are the reactions? What have people been feeling? What are they being affected by? We've talked about this on numerous occasions. I've had my own ups and downs, having COVID, going through the quarantine, the isolation, which we have all felt. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited. I'm excited because we have done some legitimate research for this episode.
Hell yeah.
Fuck yeah.
I am excited. I think it's coming at a really good time too.
Yeah.
Just because we've spoken about COVID a bunch of times and like bits and pieces during our episodes, but we've never actually had a full COVID moment to just really dive in and see what's going on. And it's really fun that Jay is here because he could give us some out of Canada perspective, which will be interesting to hear, because I feel like most of our listeners come from North America, like the States and Canada, from what I remember. So
But
it's cool
shout
that
out
we
to those
have
listening to overseas, because sometimes I
Yes.
look at Podbean and we have people all the way from Russia, from India,
Yeah,
far out. So much
that
love
is
to
true.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Okay, go, Alan.
Oh, I'm going first?
Yeah,
That's how it's going to go?
yeah,
Fine. Gosh.
yeah.
Anyway, so I mean, I think just the first way of starting off is looking at where we currently are, as opposed to, where we've been. And at least here in Quebec, I listen to the radio every single day practically, and I'm reading the latest updates with the numbers and the trends, so I would, say, from my perspective, and you guys could agree, things do seem to be on the up and up, And well, that's a funny way of expressing it, because I don't want people to get the wrong idea where cases are on the up and up, They're not. They've actually, from what I've looked on the government's website here in Quebec, the last 7-day trend shows that numbers have been dancing around the 950 mark, something like that. It's taken a dip, to maybe a little less than 200, and now it's kind of gone back up. And then I compare that to the last couple of weeks. That's what's been happening, though. It's kind of like on the decline as opposed to where it was during, let's say, the holidays, 2020, going into the new year, as we knew that was a very severe time, particularly, for what was going on here at home in Quebec. But there does seem to be improvement. And we know there's also been improvement because, it reflects what's going on with our restrictions. So we go by, what is that, a 3-tier system, guys? Is that correct? We have, we have green zones, yellow zones, orange, and red, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, right.
So 4.
That's it. So different regions of Quebec have different colors. They're coded in different ways depending on the severity of how COVID is having an impact in those places. For the longest time, let's say if we take Montreal, right? Okay, we were in the red zone.
Still are
in the red zone. That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Technically. And it's just been rather, it's been hard. It's been more frustrating, if anything. That's coming from myself, but also coming from, from what I've read online, from how people are expressing themselves. And this leads to a few things occurring. Number one, people are protesting about this, as we've seen. Quebec made international headlines not too long ago. I don't know if you saw this, Jay, but we have something, a place in Montreal called the Old Port. Very classic, very traditional, old colonial times part of Montreal, and there was a huge protest not too long ago that got really ugly. People fighting, people littered stores, broke into a bunch of shops, and set fire. Left, right, and center. And this is a really beautiful part of town. And it sucks that happened. But essentially, people were rebelling against our curfew. We do have a curfew. It was, let me see, as of the beginning of the year, up until sometime in March, guys, something like that. It was set at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
And then sometime after March, we went back to 9:30. It got pushed to 9:30. And for a couple of weeks, people were really happy about that. Really happy. I was happy. It was just like, oh my God, this is so nice. We got like another hour and a half. Yay. And what ends up happening is that there was an explosion of cases up at Quebec, our capital, Quebec City.
Yeah.
And there was an explosion of cases at a gym, right? And I don't know the exact details, but long story short, gym owner not exactly throwing his support, his effort behind trying to maintain the measures. And there was an explosion of cases originating from one gym where it started off as being maybe a couple of dozen people getting infected to several hundred, to the point where we had over 600 related cases coming from one gym less than 2 weeks after. And
I actually have the number. I looked it up really quick.
What's the exact number?
So the gym was shut down on March 31st, and that's when the city was put on lockdown again. So there was 224 people infected at the gym, and then there was another 365 released cases involving the outbreak. And somebody actually ended up dying.
Yeah,
because of the outbreak.
Yeah, someone died from that.
Yeah.
The gym owner himself got sick with this as well.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
I think he was hospitalized also, I believe.
He was.
I think so, yeah.
He was. Yeah. So I don't know if you believe in karma, but that might be saying something right there.
Shit.
It is. And yeah, so the reaction from that, so people gathered, people protested. We've had more protests since. We've had protests before that, but it's becoming a regular thing where certain landmarks here in the city, people have been gathering to protest against like anti-mask groups, anti-vaccine groups, and I look at them and I ask, okay, well, what could they be feeling, right? And most definitely there's frustration, there's anger. I think there's a lot of distrust too, right? And, again, from my perspective, just reading, online and about, a lot of that distrust seems to be coming from the fact that this vaccine is here, or we have several variations of a vaccine. And it's been so quick, right? This happened at an exponential rate where for many people of all walks of life, they look at this and they ponder just like, I don't know if I can really trust that. And everyone's got their reasons, I'm not to tell you what to believe and what not to believe. That's just the facts, that some people are just, they see the distrust, they see the skepticism behind it. And if you really want to get wild, the conspiracies, but, yeah. Luca, a little giggle there. Are you a conspiracy theorist, my good friend?
No, I'm not.
You sure?
The Earth is round, Luca. It's round.
Oh boy, but Alpha's about to become controversial here.
Oh my God.
Watch someone make some comments and just be like, "How do you know?
Yeah, you know.
Have you been to space? Shit." Anyway, but yeah. So there's been a lot of that. So a lot of distrust going into this, and I think people are also tired,
Yeah.
But at the same time, it has been expressed, through, radio announcers, you have broadcasters from the different media outlets, and you hear the general talk of the town, depending on where you associate yourself. And from my perspective, it sounds like from what I've been hearing, people are more optimistic or more cautiously optimistic these days. Because the current situation is the vaccine is coming out as of, today's May 8th. As of May 14th, all 18 to 24-year-olds and all other age groups older than that will have access to the vaccine, right? And I was reading, I overheard that there was a poll that was recently taken, where over 58% of Canadians said, I don't know the exact poll, but it's legit. We could look it up and find it, so in case we get called out here, right? Just in case. But like most Canadians are behind getting vaccinated, right? Do they want life to get back to normal? Is it because they're just fed up and they're just going to, sign me up and let's get it moving? Is it for protection, for one's own health? I think there are a lot of reasons as to why we're behind this. But it's been an up and down roller coaster, but right now I look around and I see things slightly improving because the curfew's back to 9:30, right? And going back to the trend of the data there that I saw on the government of Quebec's website with the latest information, numbers, yes, are at times going a bit up, but there has been a downward trend. There are, less hospitalizations than there were, in the last quarter, right? Less people in the ICU. All right. So something to me is working, but at the same time, I don't think we're out of the woods just yet because there's a lot of things we're dealing with, like the variants, right?
Yeah.
I ask people in my own social circles how they feel about it. Many of them are worried. They're uncertain. There's a lot of fear because we don't know how that's going to play out. And but I don't know. That's the talk that I have to offer there. And that's everything that I've seen here. I've read about in relation to Quebec. But Jay, tell us, my good sir, what has your perspective been like in terms of the numbers, the data that's being presented in terms of COVID cases and people's reactions to the latest measures as well as the vaccine rollout campaign?
So I wanted to touch on something you said before I go forward.
Go for it.
When you were talking about the protests, you said something that stood out to me. It was like, I wonder what they were feeling. I wonder what was on their mind. And that's something that I don't think there is enough of. Look, there's going to be difference of opinion when it comes to these things. There were differences of opinion when it came to vaccinations before COVID.
Very true.
There really were, and did I pay much attention to it? No, not really, not at the time. But that's something that I think that, and we'll get into the mental health part of it, but I think that having a level of understanding for people who think differently than you do will go a long way towards solving a lot of these issues. Not necessarily, the COVID issue, of course,
Right.
because everybody has to, I believe, do what they feel is necessary for their own health, and I applaud that. But I think that just the way that you said that just struck me, because I live in America, and there's a wide range of kind of feeling, when it comes to
Yeah.
this sort of thing. But let me go ahead and get to the numbers. In the United States, right now, 33.8% of the population is vaccinated.
Wow.
Okay, so the U.S. has a population of 328 million people. Okay, so let's just put that in some perspective there. Fully vaccinated people is about 111 million. Okay, and the doses that have been given out is 255. Now we know that most of the Johnson & Johnson shot only takes one, but I think they have kind of put that one on hold for a little bit due to health concerns. The other ones take 2 shots, and so there is a subset of people who take the first shot and they're like, you know what, I'm not really feeling this. I'll wait to take the second one. Usually, I think the time period is in between. I did tell you my dad and my brother have both taken it, and I believe the period is about 2 weeks between shots. If you're 16 and up, you can get a shot in the United States. So that's something that that's for anybody who wants to get one. I'm glad that it's available. The last 7-day trend, we're at 5.4% positive tests out of 881,000 people who took a test this past week. So we are trending down. Look, just on April 27th, and we had over 1 million tests taken and 54,000, 4.5%. We're positive. So, but we're kind of, we're trending down in the number of tests taken too, so that can be good, because that may mean that people are not seeing symptoms. And that's what we want. We don't want people to have symptoms. We don't want people to get sick. Now, as we mentioned before we started recording, in the United States, the restrictions vary quite differently compared to state. You can have one state right next to another, and one of them can be super restrictive. In my case, I live in California. It's one of the most restrictive states in the union, and Arizona is right next door, and their restrictions have been lifted. So completely.
Wow.
If I drive 2 hours to the east, then I don't have to, have the same type of restrictions that I have in California.
God damn.
Yeah. So it is different. I mean, I'm looking at a map right here from USA Today, and what it's showing is that states that have actually completely lifted their restrictions are Georgia, Florida, Oklahoma, Texas, Arizona, Missouri, Iowa, and Montana. So they're your states that are completely open, no mask mandates, no anything. Now, of course, nobody's going to tell the population there, and I can tell you, I do spend a little bit of time on social media. I don't post as much because I don't think it's a good idea, for me to get involved in that stuff. But on social media, I remember when Texas opened up, it was all, social media. And let's just be clear. Social media is not real life. Okay. Twitter, I always thought was a place where you just kind of post your opinion, and maybe some people will engage with you, but there was a lot of doom and gloom from a certain set of the population. Oh, Texas is, they're doing the wrong thing or that. Well, I mean, look, the numbers don't lie. Texas is doing just fine.
Yeah.
Okay. But they're doing what's good for them. What's good for them, and I got to stress this, may not be good for, and that's the reason why I've never, at any point during this whole time, approved of a federal mandate. We are the United States. We have 50 states. We have, 50 different sets of population. What's good for New York may not be good for Texas, and most of the time it's not. So I agree that the governors of each of these states are doing what they feel is best. Now, look, in the United States, and we'll address the elephant in the room. In the United States, the virus and all of the mandates that go with it has been completely politicized. And it's sad that that has happened because it has cost us more goodwill, and
Mhm.
it's caused more suffering than it should have. Okay, and that's just the truth. The
Mhm.
United States media, I don't even pay much attention to them anymore because they're garbage. Uh, and
Fair
I,
enough.
this is coming from somebody who I do want to be informed. I
Mhm.
like to learn things about what's going on in the world around me. You know that I'm a well-traveled individual, and I
Mhm.
I like knowing how everything's going. But you just get to a point where you can't trust them,
Yeah.
because there is something underlying in some of the things they say. They either omit information that they shouldn't be omitting, or um, they'll put a scare into people. And look, I think that a lot of the what's happened in the United States when it comes to some of this stuff is you have governors who give you some of the strictest lockdowns and tell you, hey, you can't go anywhere, you can't go out and eat, you can't go get a haircut or whatever it may be, and then they go and do what it is they're telling the population not to do.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so when you see something like that, and Americans are very, you know, I don't know how to best to put this without sounding like it's a defamation there. But Americans are they don't like seeing hypocrisy, and they're not big on like they want their freedom. Hey, you know what? There's a bunch of people a couple hundred years ago that decided that we should have certain
Right.
rights,
Hmm.
Mhm.
and those still hold true today. And a lot of people, and look, do I feel like some of them are kind of out of line on that? Yeah, of course, but that's going to happen. Again, I told you what the population of the United States is. It's 328 million. You're not going to have everybody agree. you
Yeah.
know but yeah, I think that in the United States right now, it is trending in the right direction, and it kind of has been. A lot of the states, the ones I mentioned to you, those are open, and most of the other ones are kind of relaxing uh,
Mhm.
their restrictions. In California, for the first time in over a year, I was able to eat indoors at a restaurant.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
So now we do still have mask mandates. I wear a mask to work.
Mhm.
When I go to the store, I wear one, and so that's the restriction in California. Uh, in some of the other states, of course, you can wear one if you want to, but it's just not required. And so but I think that it just really depends on the situation. If you find that it's working, what you're doing, then sure. But I mean, I don't know if you guys know this, but the governor of California is getting recalled. And part of the reason is because he's one of the governors that put out these crazy restrictions, and then went out to eat at restaurants and stuff.
Mm.
And
Nice.
so California is. I would never accuse California of being friendly to small businesses, but it's really been tough over the last year for small businesses,
Hmm.
um, and made more so by the fact that you'll see. I don't know if you guys have Walgreens in Canada. You're familiar with
No.
Walgreens? It's a pharmacy,
Right.
and so I believe I know that they give COVID tests, but I don't know if they give the shots yet. They probably do. A lot of places are giving shots now. And
Mhm.
so you'll have a place like Walgreens, which is a national chain, and they
Mhm.
can stay open, but the mom and pop, uh, you know, small business pharmacy right across the street, they're not allowed to stay open. And so there's some level of feeling there.
Right.
And obviously anybody who's been awake in the last couple of years knows that we've had quite a bit of protests ourselves over here, and
Mhm.
so it's kind of tough to deal with all the sensory overload that you get, and part of the
Mm.
reason I don't watch the news as much as I used to is not only now, don't get me wrong, I do stay informed. I just
Mhm.
get mine from a third party source.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't any of the alphabet networks. I do not watch them, and
I like that alphabet network.
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah,
true. Yeah.
don't want to watch the alphabet networks. But and I think if anybody has thought towards doing, kind of taking a look at these things, like when I was doing my research for this episode, there were some things that surprised me. you know?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah, that's why you do your own research. That's why you do things yourself. That's why you don't rely on, Joe Schmo from across the street to tell you what's going on in Texas or Oklahoma or whatever, because they don't know, you know? And that's, but yeah, I mean, for my part, I stay out of all the mainstream goofiness that goes on for this. I have a job.
There's
I
so
work.
much. Yeah.
You know? Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. So I mean, I work. I come home. I do more work, and you guys know how that goes. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of how I've stayed. The majority of the population just wants to be left alone. Just let me live my life. Just let me do my thing, and that's all we want. And I'm part of that. I'm part of that group. I don't want to get, I don't want to go to the street and anybody who wants to do that sort of thing, they are, of course that's fine. People should be allowed to express their concerns or express their displeasure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be part of that group though. I just want to just be left alone. Just let me do my thing. I'm easy. Don't tax me so much. And, don't tell me I can't do certain things that I by right should be able to do. And I'm fine,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the short answer to this is it's trending in the right direction, and I feel like that's going to continue going forward. In 2022, we have elections coming up, so I can promise you that some of these restrictions are going to get lifted well before then.
Right.
Politicians like to do politician things, and part of that is
I like that. Yeah.
part of that is giving you freedom that they probably shouldn't have taken away from you in the first place, and then saying, "Oh, look what I did for you." And
Yes.
so yeah, we'll see what happens coming up.
God damn.
That is very interesting.
It is, and I really liked how you worked, going from the big picture, and working your way inwards, from the States, continental United States versus, and then getting into California, what's been going on. And it's just like, that's good. So what's my question here? I guess, I mean, of course you don't want to, feed too much off of what the alphabet networks here, have to offer, and, I commend that, because you go out of your way to find out, through third parties, whatever they may be, knowing the fact that you want to gain as clear as it can be, a perspective, that doesn't seem to have been influenced of sorts, but for yourself, how does Jay feel, so you speak about, what's going on, but how do you feel, what's your perspective, personally speaking?
Well, COVID has impacted me. Obviously, I spoke about this before we started recording, but I have had it. And I have a family member, my brother, he had it before too.
Wow.
I have family members who are high risk for it. So clearly it's going to impact everybody in some way. And that is kind of how it's impacted me. Now, I took a 10-week break from work. They closed where I was working at the time. They closed that down for 10 weeks when the COVID restrictions began in California. And I think that was per the company. I think that was a decision that they just made, across the board. Hey, we're gonna shut down for a little bit. Everybody go home, and be with your family and relax. And this was early in the process. Nobody really knew how this would get. A year ago today, Alex, you and I were chilling on Discord and just just having a great time, right?
Yep.
But I wasn't working at the time, and so. That was an odd time period because there are some people that haven't gone back to their normal,
Right.
And so there were people who were laid off for obviously, and I can tell you it's weird because where I work now, we just did a hiring event, and it's really tough to find people. Really? Although we do have openings, well, there's still a lot of government assistance that's happening.
Okay. Right? Oh, yes.
And so, in some cases, it is more profitable for them to not work And so, although we are trying to open back up and we are trying to get the ball rolling here, the government assistance thing, and of course, I'm all for government assistance for people who need that, because there are people who really do. I deal with them on a daily basis. But yeah, it's tough to find good help right now because it's beneficial, or you get paid about the same, or you get paid a little bit more. If I make decent money, but if I was offered, $1 or $2 less an hour just to chill at home and work on my graphic design stuff all day, I'd do it, So,
For sure.
I mean, let's just be real about this. So that is something that's happening. But me personally, I've tried, I'm just I guess I'm different than a lot of people. I don't want to live in a place where I'm scared all the time.
Yeah.
And I see that sort of thing, and it's sad for me. I saw a video probably very early in the process in the COVID situation where I saw a woman frantically. She had a tape measure with her and was going on the beach measuring if people were 6 feet apart, just
Oh
going
my
crazy.
God.
Wow.
Yeah, people lose their minds, and so and I saw that, and I thought that was really sad.
Yeah.
I'm like, what has happened to this person to make them want to do that stuff to people? And so it's crazy. The mask stuff is really, you get used to it, and so But what I think about, and I think a lot of people don't. What about all of those people that are like claustrophobic, and they get crazy anxiety every time they got to put that thing on,
Yeah.
I work with some people who every chance they get, they take it off so they can just breathe, Now, me and the way I work and the situation I'm in, I can handle it. I'm cool with it, but some people can't. And so because of that, it's tough on them. I hate that. And compounded by the fact that we haven't really gotten into this yet, but compounded by the fact that some of them will get bullied online, and it's just completely acceptable. Oh, if nurses can do it, then you can do it. Well, nurses, that's their job. They're signed up for that. They knew what was going on. I'm not gonna go to some random person off the street. It's like, what, if I can catch bullets in Iraq, so can you. I mean, people are not the same.
No.
Yeah.
They're just not the same, and I feel bad for those people who do get that anxiety, because it does happen. I've seen it. And what they get for speaking out and saying, what, this is not good for me. This is not good for my mental health. I'll just do it. Don't be a dick. That's kind of the way they're like, okay, I'm not gonna bully you and say that you're the asshole when I'm being the asshole, and that should not be acceptable. But it is for some people. And that's the stuff, the personal stuff. Look, I've had it. I can handle it. I'm done. I'm good with it. I can put things in their proper perspective, but I don't like seeing how other people have to deal with things that it doesn't bother me, but it bothers them. And if you're truly somebody who is sympathetic, if you're truly somebody who is wants to see better for people, then you're going to try to have an understanding why people struggle with the mask thing. You're going to try to understand why people struggle with the vaccine thing. Everybody's got a reason. And look, the reason that somebody doesn't want to get a vaccine, if in fact that's the case, that's not my business, and it's nobody else's. At no point ever in my life have I ever seen the population try to tell other parts of the population, hey, I need to know what your medical history is, or else I'm going to publicly shame you.
Yeah.
No, let's not go there. I don't think that should be acceptable. I think the people who do that, they shouldn't be glorified.
I agree. The problem is not everybody thinks like that, and there's still people going out doing such things, And but hey, we it's not a matter of just control, but just of respect, to have decency, for the person on your left, on your right. You've touched on, something that we're going to dive deeper into, especially about the mental health aspect regarding COVID. But before we get there, I think, we're going to explore the avenue regarding vaccines.
Yes. So, as we've mentioned, vaccines are a little bit like teetering the controversial side, I would say. Some people are for the vaccines, some people are totally against the vaccines. But whether you're for or against, I have some vaccine information that pertains to Canada and specifically Quebec, where we live. So basically, like for us, for the longest time, only priority groups or at-risk groups were entitled to get the vaccine. Like they were the only ones who could go. So those were, like the healthcare workers, senior citizens, people who worked with senior citizens, or I think even like maybe first responders were like essential workers. So first responders, police, firefighters, all of those groups were priority for the vaccine. But then everybody else was kind of just like, wait your turn. We're not there yet for you. So I know a lot of people were kind of frustrated with that, but others, they were like, okay, good. Like at least the elderly and people who are responsible for them are safe. So I was like, that was okay. But then there was a lot of stirs in the like education system saying like, we're essential workers, we're like in the front lines with the children all the time, like we deserve vaccines. And there was a lot of internal, I think, like protesting and strikes, not protesting. Well, I guess strikes are kind of like a protest, but anyways. So there was a lot of that going on within the education system here. So with both of our school boards, so EMSB and Riverside. So that was something that was very prominent. And I think it was like mid-April or about a month ago, they were finally, like school boards or anybody who works in the school system was finally able to get a vaccine, which was really great.
Nice.
And so currently, if we look at what this, not the stats, but what the info is right now. So currently people who are over the age of 35 can receive the vaccine, which is awesome. However, people who are 45 and over, those, like if those groups go to get the vaccine, they're only able to get the AstraZeneca, which is kind of annoying for some people because I know that there's a lot of like resistance when getting the AstraZeneca. Most people here want like either the Pfizer or the Moderna or like the Janssen, which is the Johnson and Johnson vaccine. But anybody who's under 45 could get one of those three. And that actually depends on the vaccination site you go to. So last month, since I work at a school, I went for my vaccine. And the vaccination site that I went to was only giving Pfizer. So no matter what age you were, unless you were of the group, like the elderly group where you can only get AstraZeneca, like everybody got Pfizer. And I know that everybody who was there was like, oh my God, yes, like I don't want the AZ one. So I was like, I was happy, but at the same time, I don't know what's in any of them. So I was just like, okay, just shoot me up, I guess. But as Alan said, as of the 14th of May, everybody 18 and older can get the vaccine, which I know is something that a lot of people here are really excited about. And then the next step is really just seeing when 18 and under will be able to start getting the vaccine, because I know that in the school system predominantly there's a lot of not concern, but they're just kind of like, when will high school students be able to get vaccines, since right now there's a lot of schools, especially in the Montreal school board, that are getting shut down because of COVID cases. So you never know who patient zero is in these certain cases for the most part, but once like, high school students, maybe elementary school students get the vaccine, then hopefully we'll start seeing less school closures. So that's something to really look forward to. The only thing, so Jay mentioned that in the States, once you get your first dose, it's like 2 weeks and then you could get your second one, right?
Right.
Yeah. So here you get your first dose and then your second dose is you only get it like after 4 months. So I went in April and my next dose is only in August. So that's something that Canada has decided to do. So we have the NACI, which is the National Advisory Committee on Immunization, I think.
Hey,
Is that how you say it? Okay, good.
That's it.
Okay, so they made the decision actually to defer the second dose for Canadians for up to 4 months after their first one. And the reason why they did this actually is because they rather have Canada like maximize the numbers of people like getting immunized, right? I have such a hard time with that word. My bad, guys. But so that everybody could start getting at least the first dose. They would rather most of the population have the first dose than like half of the population, let's say, or less than half be fully vaccinated. So that's kind of why we have such a long gap between the first two. But actually, I think this was like a few weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, they released a new statement saying that Canada has been getting more supplies of vaccines. And so their hope is now that the interval between the two doses will be less than 4 months. So that's actually some really encouraging news, I think. And they're saying also that by the end of June, the federal government is actually anticipating having received like almost 44 million doses of the 3 approved vaccines, like the 2 doses, so Pfizer, Moderna, and AstraZeneca. So that's really, really great because actually only 37.7, I'm going to be hella specific, % of Canadians have received 1 dose. So we're like nowhere close to being done. We're not even halfway of the population with their first dose. So it's not concerning, but it's just like, it's good that we're getting more because then hopefully we'll be able to vaccinate at a higher rate, hopefully. But I looked into some numbers, which was actually like pretty large. I didn't expect this. But so in Canada, so this is like the whole nation. Okay. 15,325,183 doses have been administered to Canadians. And out of that group, we're at about 355,000 doses that have been administered in Quebec. So that's pretty good. I was like, hey, look at that. I don't know how many people are in Quebec because
I think we're 6-7 million altogether.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yeah, maybe a bit more.
Really far behind, but you know what? By I think May 14th, it'll have gone up by a lot because then anybody of consent, of like legal age, I should say, not of consent, of legal age can get it if they want. And then we just have to work on the youngins. But listen, to me, this is encouraging. And what's even more encouraging is that Canada anticipates that everybody will hopefully have the first dose by September of 2021. So at least we'll be half protected and then work on the second half, or even fully protected, depending. I know Luca and I, if I believe I'm speaking correctly, we will have had both doses by September. So we'll be like fully covered. So most people who have had the vaccines around the same time as us will also be fully covered. So hey, September 2021, guys. Looking forward to it. Not gonna lie.
No, and I agree. I absolutely agree with that. And not too long ago, I saw some friends outside, just grabbing a little slice of pizza and whatnot. And we're discussing, like everyone's done this at one point or another in our own social circles, just thinking what you like to do, once, restrictions are lifted, once all of us, if not the majority of us, have received a vaccine. And you feel that positive energy, So I feel what you're saying, Alex, and that sense of wanting to look forward to better days. And it's really been hard because I don't know. I mean, how many times have you told yourself that within the last year? Like, guys, don't worry, better days are ahead. Better days are ahead. And we've had a lot of shit days, regarding, this pandemic, whether you have contracted COVID, you knew someone that got it, whether someone really struggled. Many of us have lost someone to COVID, and it's been a big impact, huge, and that's tying back into what Jay was talking about before. But I think for the first time ever, I like it shows, and I can get behind that, that I support, I want that for myself. I want that for everyone, Yeah. Well, but It's just it's still tough. Luca, why is it still tough?
Yeah, that's a great question, Alan, because I think we've talked about a lot about this in the past, and when we first started our podcast, and how it would affect mental health and stuff. And I think we don't really know the long-term effects, but there's definitely going to be some studies coming forward in the future that are going to show that there has been big impact, and we could just see it just from the stats that, and if we look back to, we sort of talked about, like I said, we spoke a lot about like COVID and how it affect people mentally in the past.
Right.
But looking at a study here, so for children between the age of 2 to 18 years old, the impact that COVID has for during the first initial lockdown was 70% reported worse mental health. Now that's during the first lockdown, right? And we covered that originally at the beginning when COVID was just beginning and stuff. But now there was even a study done back in March, I believe, or this was from September to December 2020. So this was released in March, and essentially, so this survey was on COVID-19 and mental health, which indicated that 1 in 5 Canadian adults aged 18 and older screened positive for at least one of the 3 mental disorders that were assessed. So that's major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder. So a lot of people have been like largely affected by this, and like I said, we don't really know the long-term effects. And those stats are sort of different, because one was like more about the children, one more about the adults. But even just looking at from children perspective, they lost pretty much almost a year of social development in a sense.
That's big.
so true.
They were quite isolated this whole time. So the question is how is that going to impact the the children moving forward, and how I guess how will they make up for that time lost, just because of how crucial these are for their developing stages, right? Especially the ages between, I guess, 2 to 18. There's like just so much growth, and even younger, like the kids that are like before, like even pre-puberty or pre-adolescence, just the importance of that social interaction for their social development. And we sort of spoke a lot about this, and just the importance of taking the time to reach out for help. And I think that's the big thing about bringing up this, regardless of stats and all that. I think the importance is that people, if they do need help, they do reach out for help. And we're going to leave, like, once again, like we did with the previous episodes, just more resources. And I've done a lot of research on, other resources that, I guess these are specifically for Quebec, but also outside and resources in Canada that could be useful. And we're also going to look around for if Jay has any, and we'll research too to find any for outside of Canada that could be useful for people that are dealing with this, because this is, like I said, those are 3, like in the survey, those are 3 like major mental disorders that are being positively viewed in these surveys. And then the question is, how is that going to long term affect people? And one thing we also spoke about back in episode with Pat, right? Shout out Pat. Is how there's an increase of conjugal violence, right? And I have a stat from the States and from Canada. So from the States, it was that 1 in 4 women and 1 in 10 men have experienced intimate partner violence during COVID-19. 1 in 4 women. That's crazy.
That's a lot.
That is crazy, and that's terrifying.
That is crazy, actually.
And if you look at Canada, the Canadian social service agencies have doubled the number of domestic abuse reports compared to a year ago.
I've heard about this. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Crazy. So this is like a time that's just the impact that it's had on people, and it is just we don't even know like the long-term effects, but just the short-term effects right now. What's been going on has just been terrifying, and I could just imagine like those people that are living right now, like having to be locked down or pretty much in lockdown the whole time with pretty much their abuser, like the terrors that must have gone down and the mental impacts that it must have had is just terrible to think about, and
and there's a lot, and it's still happening as we speak right now.
Yeah. So it's just that's why I think a lot of people are sort of going back to your question, like a lot of people are still dealing with this just because this is not like a thing that's going to go away right away once COVID finishes.
No.
These are going to have long-term effects on people, and PTSD is going to be huge in a number of ways. And we sort of looking back to maybe Jay talking about people that are claustrophobic having to wear masks all this time, and how, you know, there might be PTSD as a result of that, just in that factor, you know, for those individuals. So it's just a crazy time, and the stress that people have gone through and the uncertainty at the beginning, and just having to go through all the, you know, all the anxieties and the depression that came with it is just, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree.
It's tough just taking a moment to think about all that, you know. And at least for myself, you know, I read a lot of individual accounts of what some people, particularly women, have had to go through, you know, within the last year. And it's not just being isolated. No, you were literally locked up with your tormentor, you know, your abuser, right?
Well, imagine that
yeah.
person probably lost their job, and, you know, they're home all the time.
Yeah,
You know?
it's true. It's exactly.
And that's horrible to think about. And it's funny, Luca, that you brought that up, because that's something I had not looked at, was the actual numbers, but I knew domestic violence was up, and I had typed it on my notes here to bring that up right before you said something about it. So I'm glad you had the numbers on that. That is something, you know, as far as education, you know, I have a high school student that's doing distance learning, and it's tough on her. And I feel bad for, you know, you guys just got out of college, you know, and so you know, you were recently students, so you know that some stuff is important to do in person.
Yep. That's for sure. Yeah.
And I feel bad. This is her freshman year, and she's missing out on so much, and she is struggling. You know, some people aren't. They can kind of adapt to that, but some people, they just can't. And I feel bad for those kids that are losing essentially a year, and so it's tough to think about.
It really is.
It's really like for like my students, I hear that almost every day. Like working with them, because they're in their first year of high school, and so they lost like their year in the 6th grade. So a lot of them have been having a terrible time adjusting to high school, because they never like fully wrapped up the end of their elementary school. So they're all kind of stuck in this weird place, and that's most of the reason why like I'm there working with them. I feel like with this one girl in particular, she just keeps telling me that she doesn't think she's smart because she didn't finish her 6th grade, and she's struggling with, you know, the start of high school. And a lot of them are always like, oh, like, will I ever have the same experience that you did? Because that was the high school I went to, so they ask me a lot about it, and they're like, oh, that sounds so fun. Like, will I ever do that? I don't think I'm ever gonna do that. So it's like, it's really tough for them, especially like they're just starting out, you know.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Alex, I admittedly was a little bit upset with my daughter when her grades started coming in originally, you know, but because she is very smart, and I know that she is, prior to, she was really good, you know, and I feel bad about it, you know, because, and I've tried to help her along. I've always offered my help to her when it comes to school and whatnot. She does struggle with asking for help. So that's something that, you know, I have to try to help her out with, to say, hey, you know, it's okay to say, I don't know how to do something, you know?
Yeah.
But looking back, is there anything different that I feel like I could have done to help her along? I mean, probably not any more than what I've already done, you know, but I feel bad for being upset with her, because in my mind, I'm thinking, look, you're so smart. You know, I don't understand how you can't, you know, can't grasp the distance learning thing. But, you know, you start reading into it, you start seeing that, you know, my child is not the only one struggling with this.
Yeah.
There are so many. And so I have eased up on her about that stuff. And the way I look at it, I was like, look, you know, we'll try again next. She's only 14, you know, she does live in an environment where she can get I mean, because I never stopped learning after college, or after high school, after college. I never stopped learning. I'm always engaged in something, whether it be history is really where I like to have a focus. So I love
Nice.
history, but there are things that I have one of those minds. I want to know more, and so I want her to do that? Sure, and she lives in an environment where if she wants to engage in that way, she can. Um, so I mean, I would love to help her along with that sort of thing, but I think getting her in the classroom is probably best for her.
Mm-hmm.
I think her focus would be better served to be in a classroom. And then, she's been without her friends. She stays home most of the time. Actually, after we're done here today, her and I are going to go out,
Oh, that's
a little
cute.
bit, but that those moments are rare, and especially you want to protect your child during a time where there's some uncertainty,
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm glad that you guys touched on that sort of thing, because it really does. We talk about the elderly, and which of course COVID has greatly affected,
Right.
but we have to look at the generation behind us too,
Yeah.
and those individuals are struggling
Mm-hmm.
just in a different way, but they are still struggling.
Yeah.
And I mean, even the social isolation also greatly impacts them as well, though. It's not only us adults who are dealing with, that depression from being isolated and all those all those things that come with having to be isolated, and be feeling
Yeah.
lonely and on all that. But also the students also feel that, having to do school from home is way different. And I totally relate with the, with students like that who are younger, who are struggling with that, because I also notice a big drop in my grades from the consistent, I did 3 years of my grades and not even moving at all, and they've always been the same letter grade pretty much all throughout. Next we hit online, and what happened?
Yeah.
Just complete downfall of everything. So
Yeah.
I totally relate to everyone and that are dealing with that and struggling with the online school, because this is just a way different experience, way different. So
Yeah, I agree. To kind of start wrapping up, Jay, you asked before if there's something that you could have done differently, and I feel that's a question that a lot of parents have asked, are asking, or will continue to ask as we close up, maybe the school year. So in my experience, I think that one of the things that I could say to all parents is really, if your child was somebody who was having pre-existing struggles with school, to stay easing up on them, but try to offer them more resources if you can. If you're financially able to get them a tutor or get a peer tutor at school, or just get them more help, that's the best thing, because not only does it provide them with some peer interaction, but it'll also benefit them educationally. And in your case, with your daughter, who always did very well in school, who might be suffering a little bit now, I think the best thing is just to keep encouraging them and motivating them and making them realize that their grades will go back up and this is temporary. That's a lot of the struggles that have been going on with the kids that I'm working with. A lot of them are worried about their grades and what their parents say or think about their grades. But at the end of the day, we just need to support the youth and try to uplift them as much as possible, because at the end of the day, COVID will not last forever. Their grades will improve. But if they start suffering from, self-doubt or mental health issues, that could, debilitate them even further post-COVID. So I think we just need to nurture the youth as much as possible. So just being super supportive right now, I think, is the best thing for any parent.
Well said.
100%.
Thank you. So yeah, that's it.
did you have any other stats for mental health from the state side?
Well, I found some stuff that was very interesting. We did talk about depression, and unfortunately, depression is one of the things that leads to suicide. However, I found that suicide actually decreased in 2020. 5.6%, which is wonderful. It's just not what I expected. We do know that divorce has gone up, or the prospect of it. I would say that, and I didn't get solid numbers on these. I know that 41% of all marriages end in divorce. That's the one I could get. I know that, but I know that divorce or that possibility has gone up in 2020 in the United States. It's just that with lockdowns, those sort of things are not prioritized. So, like if you're wanting, and in the state of California, for example, it's going to take 6 months to get a divorce anyway, but prolonged because courts are really delaying items that are not would be considered essential. It's so, and of course those don't always isn't always from like a domestic. There could be irreconcilable differences. When you're locked in with somebody that you're with. I mean, they're your partner, but you might find that you don't want to be with them every single waking moment of your life, and that's gonna. I'd read before I knew any of the stuff for the United States that in Asia had gone up a lot. Divorce. So those sort of things are impactful. Again, I couldn't get the exact number, and I think mainly because due to lockdowns, those numbers aren't going to be accurate anyway. But yeah, divorce has gone up. Suicide decreased. Wonderful. However, we do know that mental health issues have gone up with that. So it's a couple that with all the other stuff kind of going on, and COVID's at the forefront and has been for over a year, but there's so many other things. I mean, Alan talked about at the beginning the protests and stuff that were happening in Canada, and I was speaking about those sort of things that are happening in the United States, and so there's so many things that just hit you all at one time, and COVID is like, COVID's just the lingering deal, and it's something that you have to deal with on a daily basis. You go to the store, it's there. You go work, it's there. You go home, and it can be there, so it's I can tell you that friends, family, coworkers, acquaintances, they're ready for this to be in the past.
Yeah.
And I saw something at the beginning of the year. It said, "Oh, you think 2020 was crazy? Just wait till what we have in store for you." One was like, "I'm not gonna, let me see a preview of 2021 before I accept going into it." It was like, I'm gonna have to see a trailer first.
Oh gosh.
But it, I think there's optimism, and that I love. I'm not much for a defeatist type of attitude anyway. So seeing optimism in other people is great. I'm really happy. It lifts me up to see certain things like that. And the fact that, you see, and it hasn't happened in my state, of course, but you see states opening up, and that gives you hope that we'll get back there. There's going to come a time where we're talking about COVID in the past tense, and it may be coming sooner than we think.
Very well said. That was like the perfect.
It was
closing statement.
I was just thinking about that as well.
That was so good.
Anytime you need me, just let me know.
Yeah.
Jay's the man. All right, my good sir. As we do come to a close, we have a couple magic words. You know what they are. When you're ready, let her rip.
Oh yeah.
We are ALFA Relations, driving change forward.
Yes.
That's it.
Let's
Right
go.
I didn't even have to write that down.
Oh yeah.
Maybe because I see it every single week.
No, what are you talking about? All right, Luca, let the people
Hit us
know.
with it.
All right, y'all. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Jay, for coming on the podcast. It's always a pleasure to have you. And check down the links down below. Like we said, if you are needing help and you are struggling right now with the pandemic and everything going on with mental health, please look down on the resources and reach out if you do need help. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, turn on post notifications. If you're on our platform, hit that follow button. Thank you all for listening again. Peace out, y'all.
Bye.